Thank you for everybody who is joining us today for What's in a Name Name Validation webinar. My name is Ashley McCreary, and I'm a marketing coordinator here at Service Objects, and I'll be helping Rob Manser out during the webinar. So without further ado, here is Senior Product Marketing Manager Rob Manser.
Started with welcoming everyone here on Wednesday, hump day as it is. I look forward to discussing what name validation is and how it can help your business. But I wanted to share a little bit about me and why I might have some insights into how name validation can work in your business, but and why it exists at all, quite honestly, in our business. So a little bit about me. I helped found Service Objects about 20 years ago. From day one, we have been focused on ensuring that every consumer record in every database is genuine, accurate, and up to date. That's a mantra at our business. It's our mission statement. And over the last 20 years, working with Service Objects and outside of Service Objects, I founded a marketing agency, I founded a lead reselling business. So those kind of experiences have given me some unique insights into how the data in the consumer data that we have and the accuracy of it really impacts the business. And it gives me some important insights into not only the accuracy of the data, but the impacts downstream that it has on metrics, on performance, on even like the esprit de corps of your business, of your sales team. So that's why we're here today. We want to talk about some of those insights. We want to talk about how lead validation works and how it can improve and protect your business as well. So I put together a little agenda for us. We'll just start walking through that. So today we'll talk about name validation and what it is. Is that not updating, Ash?
No, I think.
1 second. Yeah. Here we go. Wrong one. All right. So today's agenda is what name validation is and what it does, and how and why it is used in businesses. We'll talk a little bit about how it works, which can get into the weeds a bit. So we'll do our best to not get too deep. And then lastly, we'll end with some question and answers, where we tend to learn a little bit more about what you might use it for, and how it'll impact your business, or how we can basically work with you to improve some of the things in your business. So before we dive too much into it, I wanted to share that we have a number of consumer and lead validation services that really look at the entire contact record, not just the name, but as you would expect, address, phone, email. Those are all great data points to determine if a contact is legitimate, if you can reach them. But name validation kind of sneaks up on you. In fact, we sort of assume names are correct or can't be corrected. And for me, initially, I didn't see the real value in name validation as I do in our other services. I was like, I didn't really understand how a name could be validated. It always seemed to me that the name field needed to be left as pretty much a free-form field where you could type just about anything in there, because my thoughts were that a name could be anything. But the more I dug in, the more I understood the true value of validating a name. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what name validation is. It basically uses artificial intelligence to verify a customer's name against a global database of millions of first and last names. And that might sound like a small number at first, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And name validation ensures that your business contains accurate and actionable customer names. And actionable is part of what we'll talk about when we look at the actual demo of the product. And it helps identify common data entry errors. It will flag fraudulent intent and identify bogus and garbage names that you just don't want in your database for many reasons. But before we do that, I thought it'd be fun to maybe take a quick poll and just see what your confidence level is that your business captures and stores accurate first and last names in your business. And I think Ashley will post up a quick little poll here.
So you should have received a poll. You can rate it 1 star being the lowest and 10 being the highest.
Well, not surprising. Kind of all over the place, but also, it's always interesting. People think that names are pretty much in a good place or close. And what you might find surprising is it's not as good as you think it is. And never, it can always be better, but it can certainly be more accurate. And that's the key here. And what you might find surprising is that some of our biggest customers, or some of the biggest customers in the world that we have, didn't start with name validation, but they learned quickly the value of it just by running a sample test with us and seeing what it could do. So I thought I'd take a few minutes and go over some of the real world use cases that we see with our customers and the impacts they're having on their business. So without further ado, personalization. I think this is the most obvious use for name validation, or name. I wouldn't even say name validation. Just having the right first and last name is key to having good personalization. And this seems like an obvious one, but you'd be surprised to learn that over 85% of companies don't validate the name capture field. Now they may validate other fields, but name capture, they just don't see the need for. But what they don't understand is that having the correct name gives your marketing and sales team the confidence to personalize their communication. No one wants to send an email to Donald Duck. And according to McKinsey, response rates improve by over 75% when communications are personalized. So there's a big incentive to have the names correct in your database. There's also the inverse of that. If you have an incorrect name in there, and you send it to Donald Duck, and I'm not Donald Duck, there's an inverse reaction there, and we can talk about that a little bit. So I thought I'd take a look at some of the examples of what personalization is and the impacts it has for some of our customers. So one, if you were to personalize the subject line in an email and put the person's first name in there, so it says Rob, and then the subject line, that is going to increase your open rates by about 22%. In addition to that, if you personalize the "Hi Rob" or the name in the email itself, the content of the email itself, your click-through rates will increase by 18%. Now, some of these are pretty obvious to marketing, but again, if you think about if it said Donald Duck subject line matter or "Hi Donald Duck" in there, that the inverse is going to happen there. Your open rates and your click-through rates are going to go down. If you're using any sort of SMS text ads or any of the messaging in there, the response rates improved by 54%. Getting something on your phone that is personal to you, you're going to feel compelled to respond in the phone. It's just a different device and a different set of actions. And so we've seen a lot of growth, a lot of improvement in response rates there. And lastly, if direct mail is part of your marketing campaign or part of your marketing strategy, having the correct name printed on the mail, and inside the mail as well, the letters inside the mail, having the correct names in there increases the response rates by 135%. Very meaningful in a very expensive medium. So you really want to see, you really want to see those increases in response rate, especially in direct mail, where there's a real cost to sending out that versus the digital world where it's far less expensive. So that's sort of the use cases in the personalization. Another use case that we'll see is fraud. We don't stop fraud, but we flag fraud. And there are so many types of fraud, from friendly to downright criminal. But when it comes to consumers, it all starts with their name. And this is where our name validation service can help. So what it does is it identifies bogus leads and customers, preventing them from actually entering your database, which then protects your critical marketing and sales resources and really helps with some of the privacy compliance things that you have to worry about. A simple example is if Rob Manter put in a fake name, and then I come back later on and say, I didn't agree to that, and it's not my name on there, but you're sending me marketing material, you're out of compliance, or could potentially be out of compliance. So we'll look at a couple of our current customers and what they're doing. One is on the customer fraud side of it. We have one of the major retailers in major malls and major department stores, probably in every city in the country. You'll see that they have added the name validation to the form, to their checkout form. And this has allowed them to really help prevent the bogus or fraudulent orders. It doesn't stop them at the door. In their case, what they do is they flag those orders for review by a fraud and customer service team. And they determine, or may contact the customer, or they determine that the order is fraud. And this has reduced their overall online consumer fraud, just the name validation part, by 9%. And all of the things that sort of they couched underneath the results from the name validation has helped them reduce consumer fraud by about 9% for them. In addition, we have another customer who is in the education lead reseller business. Basically, they go capture student information or anyone who's interested in any sort of their education programs that they might sell these leads to. And so the universities and colleges of the United States and Canada, they sell leads to. And so what they do is they generate their own leads, as well as they buy leads from third parties. And they bring those all into their database. And before they ran name validation, they were seeing about anywhere between, depending on the type of lead they were capturing, anywhere between 30 and 70% of bogus leads in their data sets. And so lead validation helped them strip that out. And more importantly, what they learned in doing that is the higher the more they did this, the higher the quality of the leads they were delivering to their customers, which turned into repeat business for them, to the point where now they demand that their third-party vendors that are delivering leads to them are now required to use the same service, so they know that they have that same quality of lead, that they're moving through their funnel. They're not sort of having to do a double check on it, or they're not having to worry about the quality of the lead, at least in name validation for them. So they really sort of, they're making sure that the ingestion of the lead, whether it's theirs or third party, is clean and accurate before they ever put it through their sales pipeline to sell, making it much easier for their sales team to sell and sell with confidence. And another a use case that probably makes a lot of sense, but you might not really see the impacts of it, is brand reputation. Marketing and sales are not the only places where we'll see personalization used, but it's not always for the best. As you can imagine, the more that personalization increases, so does the opportunity for bad players to misuse it. So as you can see below, while this news organization was reporting on a tragic plane crash, they took the names from the public of the pilots. And of course, it was probably tongue-in-cheek, meant to be funny, little off color, obviously. But at the same time, what you really have to sort of step back from and recognize is that news organization's brand has been muddied. Now they're creating a mistrust in the facts that they report, and they simply are embarrassed, or should be embarrassed. And worse, at some level, some reporter had to read these names on the air, that in of themselves is pretty embarrassing for them. But more recently, and I'm sure if you've paid attention to some of the headlines, JP Morgan has kind of got in trouble with a little bit of having their brand reputation sullied around founder fraud. JP Morgan, I think back in 2021, purchased a company called Frank. And Frank was designed to help students with financial aid. And JP Morgan really was buying their customer database of about 5 million people. And what they later discovered as their marketing team went to use the names to market to, that about 80% of those names were fake. And they were largely made up by the founder and some of the people in their company to raise the value of their company to sell to JP Morgan. Now they're in the whole lawsuit and all that stuff. But again, JP Morgan they're splashed on the front headlines of like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. So again, their brand has been sullied. They've got stockholders that are a little bit of confidence shaken. And all of this could have been prevented with, specifically in this case, could have been easily prevented with running the name validation or any of our validation services, honestly, in their due diligence process. This would have been called out pretty quickly. So that being said, it's about brand reputation, but not all bad names are meant to be harmful either. I don't want to suggest that everyone has ill intent here, but there are some creative people out there. And so one of our customers is one of the leading car writing services in the world, found that their drivers and customers are getting a little creative. And what they have found is their drivers will sign up with names that might encourage riders to tip more, like I like tips. And so that appears on their screen in the car. It appears on the app when they're seeing their driver show up. In addition to that, riders would also change their names, and they'd be a little more creative in a different way. They might be offensive. They might be distasteful. Either way, the company didn't want that type of naming associated with their brand, basically. And so they've implemented name validation at the time of account creation to help them detect and deter those types of names. It also, some of the other impacts that we don't necessarily think about in that case where it's publicly viewing or potentially employee viewing, you start to bring in the HR conversation, you start to bring in customer service issues. So there's much more than just, that name doesn't look good. There's a lot more there. And so they've deployed name validation to help detect those and prevent those types of names from ever making it to the public eye and creating any of these problems. So 3, I think, strong, interesting use cases. There are plenty more, but these are the 3 strong ones that I thought are really help illuminate what name validation can be used for. So with that said, I'd like to maybe dive in a little bit to how name validation works. And so,
yes, let me switch on over.
So first we'll start with a demo.
All right, can everybody see this?
Thank you.
Rob, can you see this?
Yep. Can you just go down to name validation and right. So let's start with a simple one. Let's just start with a good name. And I'll just walk through this. So as you can see, the name starts as Alexandra Stewart over on the left side under the input, and you'll see how quickly this returns. Go ahead and submit. So, and we'll just work our way down this list really quickly, and we'll look at a few examples. So first, as you can see on the right here, we have the output of the name classification. That really just tells us if that's a person or a business. And sometimes we might put unknown if we really can't discern what's being said there. And then what's important here, and again, seems pretty obvious, is the first name and the last name are broken out into separate fields. This is important. That parsing is what allows you to build out your CRM properly. It allows you to do the personalization. So if you just want to insert a first name into any of the personalization, you can do that. And then if you work our way down a little bit more, you'll see that where it says first name found and is common first name, these are values that tell us that it's a known first name in our database of first names, and it's common. And then one of the things that I find helpful if you have a call center environment or customer service, this name origin and the name similar, those can help with pronunciation of names sometimes. You might just see it spelled a different way and it might click. It helps that way. A lot of people ignore these fields and don't use them anywhere, but they are provided. And the same is true for the last name. We'll tell you if it's a true last name, if it's a common last name. We'll give you some other alternative spellings of it that might help. But if we scroll down a little further, we get into really the meat of what name validation is really meant to do. As you can see, there's a number of fields down here: vulgarity score, celebrity score, bogus, garbage, and then dictionary score. All of these are scored on a scale of 0 to 5, where 0 is good and 5 is bad. And what we are doing individually is taking each element of the name and applying some AI and some algorithms to determine, does this match any of the vulgarity words? Is there a celebrity score we need to do? Is it bogus? Is it garbage? Garbage meaning that did someone just hammer, random keys on the keyboard? Is it dictionary? Dictionary is a very strong indication of bots creating accounts. Bots will just go through and take 2 words of the dictionary, jam them together, and call that a name. And so if any or all of these come back with any sort of negative score, it'll influence the overall name score. And that's that one near the bottom there, overall name score. And that all of these values can be used to generate business rules around, or even write workflows around them, as well as allow you to basically provide some reason why a customer is going to move over to customer service. Sometimes we see some of our clients were like, well, you're flooding customer service with these. And we're like, yep, here's why. And you're able to sort of justify that. One of the other things that is worth talking about, but we don't have any in here, is these status codes and statuses. These are where you will see why we gave you the scores that we did in these other ones. So Ash, maybe we can take a look at maybe 2 other ones here. Let's look at bogus for a second. So a bogus name is a no-note. So clearly maybe someone is just responding to, they want to get a freemium in your marketing database, and so they just jam in this no-note. So first of all, we're saying it's a business classification largely because we don't have a really good match on the first or last name here. And as you scroll down, you'll see that the first name is found, and that just means it's found in the database. So there might be a database where someone's name no, or there might be a case where someone's name no, but it's not common. And so that common thing is a little bit of a flag, but not yet. But it becomes a bigger flag when we start to see the last name is false as well. And then if we start to scroll down into the scoring itself here, you'll see that it comes back as a bogus score of 5. In addition to that, we give it a dictionary score of 2. And so we're overall going to score this as a 0. And in this case, a 0 is bad and a 5 is good. I know the scale's flipped on this. That's a long holdover from early on when we developed this, and can't really change it. But so a 0 in this case is a bad score. And down below that, you'll see some of the note codes, like it uses dictionary. It has a, unfortunately I can't see all of it here, but it would say something like severe, severe, I can't remember the exact words of it, but basically the ratio of it to the other names that we may have in the database is very low, meaning it doesn't have a high likelihood of existing as a first name. And so it gets a severe penalty for that. And so that's a good example of what bogus might come back as. And maybe we can look at one more, Ash, just to do that. So vulgar is always fun. I'm not going to do that one, but you guys can imagine all of the entries that go in there. But let's look at garbage, Ash. the garbage name. So here it is, the cat walked across your keyboard or something like that. And if you hit submit, you'll see that we don't know what this is. We're not going to give it any possibly good scores here. It's going to be false all the way down. First name's false, last name's false. There's no alternates to the first or last name. And as you get all the way down, you're going to see the bogus score is 2 and the garbage score is 5. And we're going to give it a 0 as an overall for all the obvious reasons that we visually can see. But programmatically, not as easy to detect. Again, if you have these scores, you can start to write a number of business rules around them. So in this case, you're probably just going to delete this or mark this as disqualified in your CRM or whatever you want to do. But this doesn't then filter up to anyone's eyeballs anymore. It's not wasting anyone's time to view it. So these are just a few of the good examples. Maybe I'll do one good example, Ash, just to round out on a good note. You can.
We'll do this one.
Perfect. So here, again, it's not just always simple names. Alexander Pinchuk is clearly a person. This is what you can see is we've got his first name in here, and we know that it's Ukrainian based on its word origin, which should help in some way give you confidence. It may not be a name you recognize, but this service will tell you that you may not recognize it, but this is a very common name in Ukrainian, or in this case, not a common name, but it's a Ukrainian name. So you can have a little more confidence in it. And the last name is the same, and then if you scroll down, I think we give this all 0s, so good scores, and an ultimate overall name score of 5. So we're very confident that this is a good name. And you could use either of those name values in any of your marketing material, and you would have a good result. So I'm going to take back the screen. Here we go. So thank you, Ashley. So what we were really looking at there is, as we talked about, the name validation verifies the first and last name. It gives you scoring. And what it does in that is that we are deploying a 40-step process in there. And there's a number of things we're looking at each level for each part of the name. So including, is it a common name, the origins. We look at the phonetics of it sometimes. We might not be able to quickly figure out if the name exists or not, but we can take the phonetics of it and see if it's a viable name. And we'll look at syntax. Is it typed wrong? We do try to provide gender. That is becoming more and more of a software issue to worry about. Of course, we talked about dictionary, but what it does is it takes all of those filters and it really applies that in that 40-step process to give you that confidence score. A couple things worth noting here is that we can provide transliteration and translation. So basically, if you have the kanji characters or maybe Cyrillian characters, we're able to translate those into the Roman alphabet to then run a name check against it. And these are all of that's done pretty seamlessly, and it integrates with all the CRMs and everything that you would expect. So what are some of the things that we do look at in that 40-step process? In short, we're looking for is it a business or person first? We want to divide it into those two categories, and then what it supports is because we can divide it. A lot of businesses are one name, so we really support that single name. So whether you're Microsoft or Prince, we're going to be able to support that single name and validate that. It also does complicated things, like breaks apart the compound names, like Sir Elton Hercules John. I did not know that Elton John's middle name was Hercules till I started this. Interesting. Or it takes the prefixes and suffixes. So someone wants to put in Mr. and Junior or Mrs. and on the front end of their name. That's going to be there. It'll also take names like Mr. and Mrs. John Paul Getty Jr. And break that into two separate names for you. It'll detect the emojis in there. So if someone wants to put a happy face at the end of their name, it's going to detect that and let you know that that's in there. It doesn't always mean that we flag them to be removed. We flag them to be reviewed sometimes. And again, as I said, it detects the compound dictionary names like Surfer Guy and all that other stuff. And one of the fun things internally that we're working on is it can detect vulgarities in other languages. That's still in beta for us. We clearly can do the English language very well. I think we're all pretty versed, good or bad. And But in other languages, everybody else wants to play in that game too. So we want to try and get a database of all of the vulgarities we can, so we can match those as well. And that's in process. So I thought it's always fun to also look at why people do these things. Sometimes intent is just as understanding the intent is just as important as understanding that it's bad. So there's an opportunity sometimes to save a name or an account because maybe they've just made a syntax error, they've made a typing error, and so we can correct those with name validation, and we'll tell you that that's what we did. So maybe in your business rules when it says syntax error, that you want to just push that over to customer service to review it to make sure that it got corrected to a name that makes sense, and then maybe look at the account for viability. But the other things like dictionary is bots. It's 100% bots. And that is, that turns into maybe their form spamming you, or maybe there's denial of service attack going on there. So that's something that maybe raises a flag to your IT department that you need help to defend this attack that's coming. Some of the other ones, vulgar, just bad actors. There's a lot of uses there for it. Some people want to put in their nickname, which is great for personalization maybe, and you can see that. Or it's friendly fraud. Maybe they don't want to give you their real name because they just want your freemium from marketing. Of course, celebrity is another one of those ones that gets used in freemium all the time. That people grab the first name that comes to mind or a headline or something like that and puts it in there. A lot of times on our forums, we'll see test put in there. That's friendly fraud. Usually someone's either trying to get a freemium or maybe it's our competitors trying to poke into the back end of our platforms and stuff like that. And so you can flag those. Again, you don't have to not let them do the things they want to do, but you want to know that that's what's happening and maybe write some business rules around it. And of course, garbage is just that. Someone's just jammed the keyboards. And you're not going to be able to recover that, but you're going to be able to remove that from your data set. So you don't have to worry about it. In any of these cases, name validation provides the insight you need to respond accordingly. So I think that's an important thing to think to recognize. And then I think the other thing to know is that our name validation service is an API service that's easily integrated into almost every CRM and business platform. We haven't run into one we can't integrate with yet. And we have a number of integration guides that can help you quickly get set up. So it doesn't have to be days of programming with your developers. They're pretty short and sweet. It's a very fast service. So that's pretty much where my presentation ends. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
We do have a few. I'm going to read them out. I'll put them in the chat as well. Can I customize the verification process to fit my needs?
Yes. There's a number of ways to do this. You can do this on the front end. Where one of the things our team recommend, well, first I'll start with this. Yes, you can customize it. But what we recommend first, before you do any of that, is let's work with a sample list. And if you know what the sample list, if we can compare the results to what you think the results should be, we're going to get really good insight into how to customize the list. And we'll work with you on that. Secondarily, if you don't want to do that, we can run a list for you. But if not, then we can, what we recommend is slowly tweaking either your business rules around the scoring rules that come out, or potentially redefining what a score means to you in your business. For example, a syntax error might mean something completely different if you're in a reseller space than in e-commerce. You might want the sale still because someone's going to put in credit card information at some point. But on the lead side of it, you don't want bad names. But on the e-commerce side, you may want to do that. So you can customize the rules to your needs. But we do recommend a little bit of testing ahead of time or some sample sizes that are meaningful that allow us to get some insights into the kind of data you're collecting, the errors you're seeing, and then how you want to respond to those errors. Any others?
What about if I deploy this to my front end forms, how does it impact the UX?
Question. It's really up to you. It's like any user experience. You get to decide how that impacts the front end. We have some customers that have deployed name validation directly to the front end, especially in checkout forms. And the service is so fast, the customer's never going to experience that a validation has happened. It happens in under 140 milliseconds. So they're not going to see any slowdown or interruption. And so really the question becomes, how do you and your UX team choose to surface the results of those validation? Do you want the customer to correct their name? Do you want to just flag it going forward that maybe you ask for a name again? in another field, maybe at the credit card level, or maybe you don't need to because it came back as a positive, so you don't need to do that. There's a number of ways that you can have it surface on the front end, and it's really up to you. But the good news is that the service is fast, it's very light in the code, and it's really not going to have an impact on the user experience at all. It's really up to you to decide how you want it to appear.
I think that might be everybody.
There's one question that I know our sales team gets asked a lot, and I just want to maybe just throw it out there. What name validation is not is identity verification. It's not saying that Rob Manser is who he says he is. What it is saying is name validation says that this name is a valid name. We and you probably don't want to dive into those personal data, those really deep personal data sets that really sort of expose you to PI problems. So we are specifically not an identity verification service. That is not what this is designed for. So it's important to sort of call that out.
Well, thank you, Rob, and thank you for everyone who attended today. We hope you learned a lot about our name validation service. If you have any other questions or want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.